Welcome, everyone, to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. Once again, this is Dan coming to you from the wood shop at DTM Enterprises. Speaking of that, dtmww.net, woodwork and handyman services. If you're here in the Metro Louisville area, give me a call. Find that website. You can find me. I'm a fairly available dude. You can find that on Facebook, Instagram, all kinds of places. DTM Woodwork. Go to Amazon and get 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. That's a book by James Christopher Cone. It is the 12 steps for everyone and a deeper dive into the 12 steps if you're currently already familiar and work these principles in your lives. I've become less and less ashamed of saying this. It's not a shame thing. It's just I don't even know what word to wrap around it. I'll just say it the way I want to say it because this is my podcast. I get to say what I want to say. It is the magnum opus, the great compendium, the Optimus Prime version of the 12 steps. It really is a deep dive. It's got 80, almost 90 years of tribal knowledge wrapped up into the book, and we got movements going on in Louisville, and it's helping people. So I'm tickled to promote it, and tickled to be a part of that movement. The music here is by Darren Frank. It'll be the intro music and the outro music. I've kind of settled on a particular song. So that out of the way, I will introduce my guest today. We're having a double header today, and I'm really juiced about that. This will be the second time I've had a sponsee pair come in and tell their stories on the same day, and it kind of works pretty well. It's a neat thing to do, and I think it's a neat thing for a sponsor and sponsee to come do together, and then we get to do this thing where we continue to practice these we principles of doing this we stuff together like that. So I've known Brian a little while, but not a long time. I do recall that I kind of am the communication director for my home group, and they're really not a particular service position if you look at the pamphlets that says communication director, but I've kind of found myself to be that. And so I'm the guy when somebody wants to join the home group or they want to do this or do that. I'm the one people tend to end up landing on, and I don't remember if it's a text or a call, but Brian called me one night. I'm really good with names and faces, and I didn't recall his face from the meeting. But he talked to me for a minute, was interested in joining our home group, and right off the bat, once we actually talked to each other, I gelled with him really quickly. I could tell he was a down home kind of regular dude. You know, we just talked, flowed, and there was never any. Sometimes there's a little bit of intrepidation, a little hesitancy. You're talking to somebody you've not talked to before. But that's not what happened when he and I talked on the phone the first time. It was straight to like we'd been friends. That's the way I felt, like we'd been friends for a long time right from the get go. So he joined in, and he will tell part of his story when he comes on in when he talks about it. But he landed here and looking for a new home group, and landed with the Spiritual Underground, and tickled to death to have him. And I've heard him talk a couple times, man, and when he shares, it's just powerful stuff. And I've been wanting to get him in here for quite some time, and we've finally been able to do that. Another friend of ours will talk about persistence, and around this podcast, sometimes I need a little persistence to get people in the chair. My little notification bell went off, and I'm going to silence that. There we go. So, welcome, Brian, to the Spiritual Underground Podcast, man. I'm so glad to have you here. We had breakfast this morning, Billy and Brian and I, and now we're sitting around the podcast table getting ready to listen to Brian tell his story. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me.
Are you excited? You look it.
I don't know. Yeah, a little bit. I always get a little bit antsy beginning when I start to give a talk.
Yeah, it is. And
it's good for me because what I do is really give up.
Yeah.
And I say, I don't want me to do this. I want you to do this.
Yeah, give me some help. Let me help me speak from my heart right in my head.
Nervous every time, so I always give up.
Yeah, well, I will watch it every time I sit here and do this. I watch the microphone. At first people are real conscious about it, and they'll look at it and they'll see it, and they're like conscious to talking to it and that, and then after a little bit they begin to roll, and then it's like the microphones disappear, and it's just me and you sitting here, and you're just talking to me like we were doing at the restaurant across the table from one another, and I like to watch. I always take note of that shift that happens in the podcast when a guy lets that go, and that's similar to what I was saying earlier. There's also that time when I can tell guys running out of gas or whatever. The story is beginning to end, and almost if you go back and listen, you almost every time will hear this sigh, and it's a sigh of like a very it's not exasperated sigh. It's a very calming, like a. And they're done. They have said what they needed to say today, and have that complete completeness. Like someplace else we do some things when we're done talking, and we say, "I'm complete at the moment," and they are complete. So I love to sit here and do it. So. How do you want to start, man? Well, we'll start. One thing that's really important, and I've kind of dropped off of this, is I think it's important that we start with our sobriety dates because that's a very important day to this man anyway.
My sobriety date is February 1st, 2015.
February the 1st.
That one is yours.
Mine is January the 1st, 2015.
Yeah, I knew we were right there together.
Yeah, New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Look, we got a guest, a yellow dog, come looking in the window. Hopefully he will leave us alone a little bit.
Yeah, I think he likes me.
Yeah.
Dogs like me. So, how do you want me to do this? Just the way I always do it?
However, man, what I like to do is make sure, at some point I like to hear about it. I personally like this, we say in the book, right, what it was like, what happened and what it's like now. And somebody said, I got a little thing in my head. I think that is right. It's not what I was like, it's what it was like. Is that correct? And, so what? It's what I was like. Is that what it says?
Because I don't know what it was like.
Okay, so
I just know my perception of.
So now that I've thoroughly blasted that, whatever it says in there, you understand the point. What it used to past, what happened to change things, and what it's like now. So, but I like to make sure that we get back into some of that little bit of childhood stuff because I think it's important that we talk about the fact that I know, and maybe not every guest knows, but it seems to be a thing that everybody knows that they were, had something different about them when they were little, way before they took their first drink.
Okay. We can start there.
So, however you want to go, man. This is your story. You know it best.
My life started off in eastern Kentucky. And really my first memory that I can think of, the one that comes to ring a bell, is my mom and dad were sitting in the living room. And my dad had been in Vietnam. He was a drill sergeant. He's a real hard ass. As a matter of fact, that was pretty instilling because, he was the first man in my life that I started learning. I started picking, which I'll get into later in inventory, I started picking up on these beliefs. Like, this is what I believe Brian has to look like as a man, right? And I start mimicking these things because I don't know what to do. And I'm really unsettled. I'm really uneasy. I'm restless, irritable, and discontent as a child and don't even know what that is. I always felt uncomfortable. So they're in the living room for a long time, and Mom keeps ushering me out, and I keep going, Dad's crying, and I've never seen him cry before. So this is a hard ass. And come to find out, he'd been having an affair, and she'd found out about it, and they were getting divorced.
Oh.
And so when I say we started in East Kentucky, I didn't live there very long, and we started moving. And Mom had to move. She did the best she could to give us a place to live, and we bounced around a lot. And Dad stayed there and moved in, which the new woman, and that was at first I didn't know anything about it. I'm a child. All I knew was I was picked up and taken away from my home, my friends, my family.
Yeah. And
we bounced around a lot over several years' time. I remember living in a basement apartment. I remember it was dark and cold and damp. And Mom, we didn't have much money, so Mom made chili all winter. And she'd just add beans, and she'd add beef. She had a gallon of milk and a pack of saltine crackers. And I didn't eat chili till I was about 25 years old.
Enough chili.
That's enough damn chili. So I didn't know these things at first, and but I always knew that there was just something in me that just wasn't settled. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, as I heard it said a lot of times,
Right. That's
and I had my alcoholism. Everybody's got their own way of looking at this. For me personally, I'm confident that I was born one. I didn't grow into it. I didn't drink myself into it. I was born one. I was born with the disease of alcoholism. I'm surrounded by it on all sides. It is generational. Both my mom and my dad's side, it goes back several generations that I know of. And so as we moved around, she dated a few different men, and I began to, have to try to, and as we bounced in different places and different schools, I didn't know who I was or where I was or where I fit in. And or who I was supposed to be. And when I went back home to the mountains, that was my home, and those people knew me, and I could just be Brian. And I didn't have to wear later we wear these, and my facades, my masks began very early in life. As I started having to go through trying to act like this person, act like that, who I thought you wanted me to be, so that you would like me, so that I'd be okay.
Right.
Because if I'm not, if you don't think that I'm okay, then I'm not okay, and I'm not enough. and that has been my right at the core of my disease my whole life, from my very early childhood. I can look back now and see it. At that time, of course, I could not see
Right,
it.
it's all rearview mirror now.
Right. See, hindsight's always 20.
Yeah.
Right. So, going home, back to the mountains, and today that's still what I feel at home. That's the one place I could be me, and I didn't feel judged, and I didn't feel the things that because we bounced around. We went from Berea we came out of the mountains and went from Berea to Richmond, ended up finally in Lexington. I was a small kid, and I was a kind child. For the person I turned into being, that's odd, because I was a very kind child. My son's that way, very loving and kind, and I hope he stays that way and the world doesn't change him like he did me, or I allowed it to, not knowing. Although that is his journey.
I have the same hopes for mine.
And all I can do is walk the walk I walk and set an example that I set. And so when we moved to Lexington, I'd got in that period. I think I was from right around middle school going into high school, and I was short and chunky, like round, and I got picked on and bullied on a lot. And I remember I just hated it. And my mother told me just recently that when I'd come home from my dad's, when we get back to the mountains, that she didn't look forward to it, because there was about 2 days of hell. I was just a heather. And I was a good kid, but for 2 days I was just hard to handle. And I got thinking about that and breathing with it, and I told her, I said, Mom, I hated it. I did not want to come back to that place. I want to stay back there where I could just be Brian, and I didn't, and I was accepted. And I didn't have that irritable, restless discontent all the time. Although I had it when I was there, knowing I had to come back.
Yeah.
I'd have it on every Sunday before school, every Monday. Like, I couldn't ever enjoy. So all my life I've been haunted by these two demons, right? The past and the future.
Right.
My whole life. And remorse and guilt and regret from the past and fear of the future. And I would stay all day Sunday balled up and locked up, because I didn't want to go to school on Monday. And I couldn't even enjoy the day or the moment that I was in. Right. And that pretty much sums up my whole life right there, up to the point that I got here in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Isn't that interesting? Because we carry that. I think we carry some Sunday night vibe all the way into adulthood, into workplace kind of thing too. Yeah. Where you're like, Sunday night's like, God damn, got to go to work again tomorrow.
I caught myself this morning meditation thinking about tomorrow. Yeah. I got to go to work and I got to drive. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold on, Mara ain't here yet.
I got something to practice, a different solution for this today.
Exactly.
So I got picked on a lot, and then my stepdad, my mother got married, and I think I was about 10 or 12, and to a really good dude, and still married to him today, and he was in construction, and he loved me just like his own son, and he still does today. We have a family construction business, actually, and I can remember sitting on his lap on the dozers.
Really? Cool.
I drive across the reclamation jobs, and they did explosives and all that cool stuff, and that's where I was first introduced to that. And I'd drive the truck, and I'd smoke a cigar, because he smoked a cigar. Once again, I'm trying to find out who Brian is, or who Brian's supposed to be, so that Brian will be okay, that people will like me. Because just who I am is not enough.
Right.
Right. If you know who I am, you really understand or feel or learn who I will, then you won't like me, and you'll get away from me. And that's my constant fear. That's just this ingrained thing in my self-centeredness. So they get married. Like I said, I would go on a job site stuff, and somewhere between he was my sophomore and junior year, I go on a road job and work all summer, and I hit puberty. I was late to puberty. And I shot from like 5'2" and round to tall, lean, muscular, 6 foot tall. And I decided I wasn't going to take it anymore. So the bully, the one that being bullied, became the bully.
I can relate with that too.
And I started fighting everybody, and fighting everything. Rules were big. When we got this thing called a peculiar mental twist, the big book talks about, an exception to the rule. And I believe therefore non-alcoholic, but that exception to the rule can be anywhere from I don't need to rub speed limit, I don't want to share a seatbelt. That's what you say to do. This.
Showing up to work on time.
Yeah, right. Hell, I mean, I do more than everybody else. Yeah. So and all that started really showing itself. But let me back up just a little bit. Before all this, so when I'd go back to the mountains, I'm sitting there with my cousin. I'm 12 years old, And we were way up in Eastern Kentucky. And we had one of those satellites that looked like a UFO had landed in the field next door. And you had to holler because you had to move it just like an eighth of an inch or 16, and you went too far, you lose your channel.
To get it aimed.
And how we really learned how to dial it in was the Playboy channel. You know, you could get it when grandparents were asleep, and you'd have to holler, turn this a little more. No, go the other way. Back. And so my grandmother and my grandfather, they drank very much alcoholically. I was just a child. I know my grandmother was. And they lived in Dry County. So Dry County, you can't buy alcohol at all. When I found out later, you can get more alcohol in Dry County than you can in Wake County. You just got to know the right people. So my third cousin, which had been my grandfather's first cousin, made the best moonshine in 3 counties. So we always had moonshine at the house. And my grandmother kept some in the cupboard in the kitchen. And I don't remember, it's like I went blank on all the hangovers and the throwing up in the morning and the wailing and the whining and my grandfather come in. I'm 6'2", about 235 today. My grandfather was every bit my height but bigger, and my grandmother was 5 foot tall, predominantly Cherokee Indian woman. I don't remember him coming in on the porch and just knocking her off the porch. See, it's like I didn't remember those things. I just remember when they started to take that drink, their eyes would light up and a glow would come in, and their faces would relax and the smile would come on and the laughter would get louder. And I thought, I want that right there. That's what I want. So I went in there and I'm telling my cousin, I said, I'm going to go in here and take a drink of this shine and see what it's all about. And my dad had given me a drink or two of beer along the way when I was young, but I never, I don't remember anything except it tasted bad. I went in there and took a big chug of that shine and I drank it. And it started going down, and my nose hair was burning, my eyes burning, my mouth burning, my throat burning, and went all the way down to my stomach burned. Come to find out later, my grandma told me when it was good shine, it only burnt when it hit bottom. When it was hot shine, it burned all the way down. That was some hot shine. and I went in there, and I was coughing and hacking. I told my cousin, I said, I don't know why in the hell anybody ever drink that. I'll never drink it again. Well, in the doctor's opinion talks about we have this thing called the phenomenon of craving. So what happens when I take a drink of alcohol is I take another drink.
Yep.
I get thirsty. And the more I drink, the more I want. I've been so drunk that I couldn't crawl and I was still thirsty. I laid in the hospital bed. They had me handcuffed to the bed and because I'm too drunk to take to jail and I'm still thirsty. So I took a drink and I sat there for a minute and I don't remember much else about that night. And I know why now is I went back in there again and got, the phenomenon of craving kicked in. I went and got another and I ended up getting drunk that night. And I ran into my cousin a few years ago and she reminded me of that night. Her mother had died, actually. It was at a funeral.
Wow.
She said, do you remember that? And I said, vaguely. And she said, do you remember the next morning your grandma getting mad at Papa for drinking it? And I said, no, but I'm sure I let him take it.
Yeah.
I kept my mouth shut. I didn't really touch it again. I went back to Lexington. I didn't touch it again really until I was somewhere between 15 and 16 years old. When I came that summer, I went on the road.
Ain't that insane, though, that you talk about it? I never touched it again until I was about 15 or 16,
That's like a long time for me, because later on, I'll never.
I still don't have a driver's license, but,
Yeah. And actually, the next time around I got it was a cherry vodka, and it was a bootlegger. Bootleggers are easy, man. Dry counties, you don't have an age limit, and you don't have a day or night time either.
Yeah, right.
There's the blue laws. Right? There's no blue laws in dry counties. You'd pull up to the bootleggers, and they had a trailer, and they had those big metal fences like in a junkyard, and there's in and an out, and you'd pull in, and you'd have a car in front of you. And they could bring it out. You'd order through the window, and they'd bring it out the steps to the front door as you pulled up, and you'd pay them. It was $1 a beer. I don't know if you ever had a beer get cold and then get hot and then get cold again, but that's a lot of what you got, or whatever else they had. And you might have the car in front of you, and then the sheriff sitting behind you, and all where you getting liquor, and ain't nobody going to jail. That's just the way it was.
And that cold and hot myth thing never bothered me a lick. I never subscribed to that. If it got hot in the trunk and it was sitting there for a couple of days and I throw some ice on it, it was just as good as when it was fresh to me.
Yeah, after I choke one or two down, it didn't matter anyway. So I got drunk again. So I started drinking. By the time I'm 15 or 16, it's like it exploded. My alcoholism was just because even though I had grown up some, physically is when I mean grown, and I'm able to take care of myself now, and I'm building a reputation, You know, and not that I was the baddest guy on the block. I was just about the craziest. Because you're going to have to kill me. I'm willing to die to defend who I believe Brian has to be. You know, and I'm willing to die for that. And crazy, unless your crazy matches my crazy. You know, if you're up against somebody that's really crazy, you want to get away from them, right? Unless my crazy matches their crazy or better than. I mean, if somebody's crazier than me, I want to get away from them.
Yeah.
And that's really what mine was, and I was willing to die for it, and that's just the way it was. And then and at the same time, you know, I'm not good looking enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm just not enough.
Right.
So, and I could look in the mirror and just pick myself apart, and then I'd go get me some beer, and I'd drink that beer, and all of a sudden I was enough.
Yeah.
And
look in the mirror and go, God damn, I am good looking.
Damn good looking. Suave, you know, yeah, and
drive better, talk more eloquently.
Oh yeah, and that's what alcohol did for me. It was my solution. It was my solution to my alcoholism, to how I coped with life, to get relief from my alcoholism. And then it started, like I said, it started very early, and once I started, it was on. You know, the book talks about, and I do not like to misquote the big book, so I'm going to talk in general terms about there was a point where we possibly could have quit, but we had no desire to. I don't know. Maybe when I was 12, 13. I mean, once I started at 15, 16, it was on. And I lived at home, therefore I drank. I'll never forget it. So we started on Friday nights, and we'd drink all the way to Sunday. And then I'd go home, and every Sunday night I'd be hungover and depressed, and I'd want to cry, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know that I was DTM. I didn't know that I was withdrawing from that alcohol. And Monday, I thought, thank God I'm not doing that this weekend. Yeah. Tuesday, and, you know, by Wednesday, yeah, hell, it wasn't that bad. And by Friday, you couldn't hardly bridle me to get out the door of school to go back and do it again. The day I turned 18, I moved out for not to be independent or to strive for success or anything. I had to be left alone so that I could do what I wanted. I didn't have anybody fussing at me.
Yep.
You know, and that sequence continued. I was an everyday drinker. I went to the military. The only times that I didn't drink until I was 30 every day was I was either in jail or in a basic training or an AIT.
I didn't know you were in the military.
I was in reserves. Yeah, and I went to. I bounced around a lot. I didn't know what I was going to do. I got in a lot of trouble before I went in. So I thought, well, that's what's going to make a man. I mean, that's what's going to fix me. I was always looking for something to fix me.
Right.
It was the right woman. I got married once that time. I was always looking for something on the outside to fix what was wrong with me on the inside.
Bell ringer.
You know. And then as my good buddy, or good sponsor Billy here always tells me, that's the essence of my alcoholism. I look for everything on the outside to fix the inside. The only God can fix. And I really tried everything I could get my hands on. Absolutely everything I could get my hands on. And so I got in a lot of trouble. You know, I was doing a lot of pills. I love Xanaxes. God, I love them. They were just like drinking without the smell. I thought, you know, if they don't smell me, they'll never know. You know, when I got tick tongue and I'm drooling and peeing on myself, and I'm 20 years old, I'm turning yellow and jaundice, but nobody knew, you know. And I wasn't hurting anybody either but me. So that was a real lie, I believe. So I got into rehab the first time. I'd done been in jail a few times at this point, and I joined the military. And my dad stepped in, and he didn't want me to join, and he said, join the reserves. He said, if you don't like it, you only got to go once a month. He said, if you go active duty, you know. And what he was afraid of is with the way I was running already, I was so off the chain that I was going to get a dishonorable discharge and get in a lot of trouble and wreck my career if I ever got started. So I went in reserves, and I met a girl in a church. So that's another thing I was looking for. I went to try religion. Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
It just didn't work for me.
I got 5 months of solid sobriety in 2005 on religion. It's alone.
They dumped me in the river 3 or 4 times and never could wash the alcoholism out of me, you know. And I met this girl, and I thought, yeah, she had a great ass, and I thought, yeah, that's what's going to fix me. And in the military, so we talked about it, and I went to base training, got back. I had a 2-week break for Christmas between basic and AIT. Got off the plane, I came in, got married, went back to advanced training, met another girl who I married later, came back, got off the plane, said I made a mistake, and got a divorce. Could be one of the quickest of marriages in history. I don't know, Billy could probably tell me more. It lasted about 3 to 4 months, time it was all said and done. I think I saw her for 5 days, the total. And that seemed perfectly normal to me, you know. And I didn't see anything wrong with that, you know. And so I got back and I got settled in, and reserves calmed me down. So I got off the drugs because drug tests, and I had enough control and fear over me to keep me off of that. But the drinking really commenced then, and it was an every evening. I would go in and drink a fifth of liquor at night, get up and smoke a pack of cigarettes, get up the next morning, get over my hangover. I'd go into work, go to duty, go run 4 or 5 miles, and then work out and sweat like crazy. Come and drink protein shakes, start drinking again. I mean, you know, that's how I was managing my drinking. And I really thought I had this thing under control. And I got into the family business, and I started building a career. I went to work every day. I worked harder than ever. I made sure that I worked harder than everybody else, so that you could see that I didn't have a problem.
Yep, that's another bell ringer I hear every time somebody sits here is talking about how hard we work, so that people don't see us. You don't think we have a problem. When people come in here and talk about they're in a workaholic, and I was like, no, that's a cover job, is what that is.
Yeah, it is.
That's a cover job.
Yeah, it is. And so I worked incredibly hard, and then I drank incredibly hard. And I just thought, you know, I just wrote it off. I'm sowing my oats, and you know, I'm young, and I'll outgrow it. Like, I had this thing in my head that somehow something was going to switch one day. I was going to hit that whatever it was, and everything was going to be okay. Like, I was going to be able to manage, and I was going to slow down. So I thought, when I married the second girl, I thought that would do it. And I'm in the military, and then my drinking just, you know, and I had bouts there. I take it back. There was a few bouts I did go on dry spells, and they weren't very long at all. And I'd go right back to it again. And I always start off with like a 6-pack then in my early 20s.
Yeah, that line that says there were periods of sobriety.
That's right. And then when I traveled a lot, and I liked that because she henpecked me all the time about my drinking. So I'd go on the road and stay during the week, because construction, you travel a lot anyway. I mean, I'd really turn it on then. And I was down in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and my cousin was seeing this girl, and they got next morning, I was really hungover, and she said, Brian, do you want 2 Lortabs? I didn't know what Lortabs were, and I ate 2, and my hangover was gone. I felt fabulous till after lunch, and from the time I was whatever 20 I was until the end of it, I ate pain pills about every day I could get my hands on them. And I drank every evening, you know. And
alcohol and opiates are sort of a few of my favorite things.
Oh, God, yeah. And I found out later, sobriety, that opiates hit the same receptors in our brains that alcohol is. So there's no wonder. It would calm that craving and that, because, well, I'll get into that a little bit later, but it calms that craving down during the day, and it calms that restlessness down a little bit. And that's why I like them so much.
Yeah, I did moderate my drinking a little bit with them.
Yeah.
I'd tell myself that.
Yeah, if I had enough of them. So that was basically my 20s, and my drinking just progressed. And then when I was getting in my late 20s, I got out of the service, and I wanted to actually do active duty. I really liked it. I didn't like reserves. I really liked active duty. I really enjoyed the Army. I liked everything about it. And I had a lot of opportunity, but I'd already had 1 DUI before I got in, and had to get a what's that called?
Diversion?
No, I don't know. Basically, they waived it to let me in, and I got another.
The military gave you a pass, so
yeah,
that it didn't.
And then I got another one while I was in. Well, this is in the 1990s, and there was nothing going on. So my sergeant just didn't turn it in. He said, "Just don't tell anybody." And that time I was down at Fort Knox, and they have those concrete barrier walls. And I came up the ramp, and I got on 31W, and I was mad, I was wild, and I was going to get some booze or something. And there was a guy in front of me, and I went, and I had a Ford 351. And I come around, and I kicked that block around, and I went around, and I hit that barrier wall, and I rode it for a minute, and I come to, and I had a couch seat in my truck, and I was in the passenger seat down in the floorboard, and I climbed up to the truck, and I put it in gear because I thought, I'm going to get another jam, you know. Yeah. And it wouldn't go in the forward, it wouldn't go in reverse, and I was headed on a southbound lane. I kicked the door open and I fell out on the northbound lane. I'd straddled that wall and I put 2 tires on each side of that wall. And they caught in the cops and the ambulances, and I'm right at Fort Knox at Bouillon Gate, you know, and I'm trying to hide it and everything. And they're all pulled up, and they said, "Buddy, how'd you get it up there?" And I said, "Son, I don't know, but if I could get it off, I sure would." It took 2 tow trucks to get that truck off that wall.
I think it's interesting the way I had the same experience where my first DUI I was 16, and I had on collision with somebody, and I spun. They was in a big car, and I was in a little one, and they just took me to town, and I spun around, and I ended up hitting the telephone pole in a cornfield. And I remember the very first thing I did was pop the clutch in and tried to start that car again, man, because I was going to go, and there was no like conscious thought there. That was was reaction. So yeah, you're up there on the guardrail. Get this thing in gear. I'm gonna get out of here.
My first one, I had a big snowstorm. I came up part at UPS. I worked there for a while before I got fired. Before I went in the military, and I got fired for stealing pills. I told everybody for the longest time I got fired for beating the manager up because I couldn't tell them the truth.
Right.
You know. And they had a big snowstorm. They dropped me off. Well, I had the munchies, and I wanted to go to Hardee's. So I go down to Hardee's, and there's a big snowstorm, and my car slides off. So here I am. I got 1 foot on the gas, 1 hand on the steering wheel, 1 hand on the door, and 1 hand on the road. And I'm trying to push it and drive it at the same time. The cop pulls up behind me and asks if I need help. That didn't last long. And that was only one. I had 5 total DUIs.
Did you?
I totaled 9 vehicles. That was just 1 or 2 of the ones I did. So, like I said, back to where it was, mid-20s. The disease, the progression. I'm getting crazier and crazier. I'm going to have to drink more and more at night to get relief. Because that's what alcohol did, and that's what dope did, and that's what it's relief from alcoholism. And then I would get up more and more and try to manipulate and manage and control the day to work out in my favor in the way I believed it should. And there's a little something about that before the third step talks about that.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to have more relief. And I kept trying numerous different things, and I tried I actually went back to school and got my college degree during this time. I did build a career. I got pretty decent at what I do, and different fields. So in the industry, there's everything from finding the job to bidding the job to running the job to the whole 9 yards, and I got to learn in all that pretty well. And traveled a lot of different places and got to see a lot of different things, meet a lot of different people. And I mean, there's some good times there. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't bad. Like the beginning I loved it. I loved it. I loved to drink. I lived for it.
There's a lot of fun back there.
Oh, yeah. When I was young, my body, the way it processes it, I could get up and go. By 10 o'clock, 10:30, it was gone. And I was good to go all day. And then it started laying on me all day. Then I found a pain pill, so forth, so on. So by the time I'm about 28, 29, I'm living with a guy. I'm scared to death to be alone, so I won't divorce my ex-wife now. This is before my children. I'm scared to death to be alone. So, and I don't know that. I know that now. I didn't know that at the time. So I moved out. And I'd stay all week. Once again, I didn't want to hear henpecking, so I stayed with a buddy of mine from high school in Lexington. He had a house, and his wife had left him and for another man because his drinking. And so it was a perfect fit. And I started coming in, and I had a bar I went to every day, and I pulled my truck right up in the front. I had this big brand new Dodge diesel, and I pulled it right up the front because I was afraid everybody wouldn't see me if I didn't, And I'd get out and I'd go in, and something started switching. Like used to, I could drink like, alcohol, ethyl alcohol is a sedative, right? So it's basically like a tranquilizer. It should calm you down and actually help you calm down and go to sleep. Well, when I drink ethyl alcohol, the opposite direction for me, it's an upper. Like I get 6 in me, I'm ready to boogie. I want to go paint the town. I want to go raise hell. It's completely opposite effect in my body than it is in the non-alcoholics. But what happened was I would go into the bar, because every night, I can remember I'd go in the bar and think, I'm just going to have a couple. And I sincerely mean it. I'm just going to have a couple tonight.
Yep.
I'm not closing the bar down tonight.
Not tonight.
And I would sincerely mean that. And then I get a couple in me, then, that reverse effect would happen for me, and I get ready to boogie. And something happened around 29-ish that I would come in, and, of course, this is where my drinking went. I was, instead of coming in and having a beer, I was coming in and having a screwdriver with shots of Jaeger to get started for the evening. And I knew the bartender well, so it was mostly vodka and a little bit of orange juice in my screwdriver. And and I would, somewhere early in the evening, I would go from okay to just literally couldn't hold my head up.
Yeah.
Like I just want to pass out. And what was happening was I was poisoning my body. I was poisoning my body to the fact my body was trying to save itself. And it was trying to shut down so that I couldn't drink anymore. Well, it never occurred to me to quit drinking. My solution was cocaine. That get me up and I could go all evening, you know, and then get up the next morning and go again. And I did that through 29, and I finally crashed and burned at 30. And I had my first round of acute pancreatitis. And I ended up in the hospital. So it goes from gastritis to pancreatitis to acute. And I drank right through gastritis and pancreatitis. I'd lay in the fetal position and take a drink and lay there until it would, and try to hold it down. And I had no idea what that was. When the doctor said you got pancreatitis, I said that one you can take out, because you can't just take it out and let me get back to my business. I got to work.
Can you remove that?
I had a big job going and all this and that. And
would that be a pancreatectomy?
And he said, no, you got to have that one. So that was my first round. And, you know, there's a part in the line in Bill's story. He talks about Lois and Dr. Silkworth are outside the room, and he hears them talking about he's going to have wet brain. And he said he knew it, he even welcomed it. That doctor and my ex-wife had the same conversation about me. And I remember thinking, you don't know who I am. See, I wasn't where Bill. That's right before Bill talks about the better morass, self-pity. Right.
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet. I still thought I had this thing and I could manage this thing. And I just had to get back up and do a big job and do this and do that and get things in the right alignment, and everything will be okay.
Get all the pieces and people in the right spots.
Yeah.
Right where I need them. Everything will be okay.
So from 30 to 36, I went in the hospital total 6 times with acute pancreatitis. Total 9 vehicles, 5 DUIs, numerous trips to the hospitals for detox. Probably forgetting a few things there. I got to skip through this phase just because I don't remember much from about 19 or 8, from the time I moved out of from Mom's house until I'm about 38 or 39.
It's like looking back through a veil.
Yeah.
Things just aren't real clear. And what I'm finding is that some more time I get clean, that veil is a little less foggy, and I'll see some things I couldn't see before. But I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. Start to give you details about that period, I'd be just making shit up.
I had a friend the other day was asking me a question about it. So she, when was that? And I had to count backwards. And, I can't just tell you
that question.
I'm like, I got to chronologize this event and come in between to figure out somewhere between 04 and 2010. That's when that happened. I don't remember. I was in a big blackout. And that's where I wanted to be. It got to the point, it wasn't like that in the beginning, although it got to the point that I just want to be completely blacked out. I did not want to think. I did not want to feel. I'd done everything that I swore I'd never do, just about. I mean, all those levels. Well, I'll never go to work drunk, or I'll never do this, I'll never do that. I had crossed all those lines long before, man. I had caused so much hurt and harm.
If I ever get that bad,
I'll quit. Well, I get that bad, then I just make me a new low, Yeah. And I crossed that one, and I crossed this one, and I lied to so many people and did so many things and stole that I just didn't want to feel anymore. Because when I woke up and I was without a drink or something in me, I mean, it just came rushing in, and it was absolute torment. The book calls it alcoholic torture.
Yeah,
the one word, and 4 horsemen, and I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it. One time, I mean, for an example, this kind of stuff I did. So I'm sitting there, and then we'd moved into a new house in Lawrenceburg, and we hadn't been there very long. And I had an old refrigerator out in the garage. And at this point now, I went from an everyday drinker to, in my early 30s, when I started pancreatitis, I became a binge drinker. Because I really that's when I actually began to try to control my drinking. And I started realizing eventually and finally that I had no control at all, and I had in my entire life. So when I start drinking, I might go days without. And when I start drinking, I was about to stay drunk for days. And I had a bad thing for walking around naked, because we didn't have any kids then, and I'd walk around naked all the time. Well, I had my beer cooler out in the garage. I would drink till I passed out. It was always the same. I drank till I passed out, wake up, and start drinking again. Well, as soon as I woke up this time, of course I'm naked, and I got to go out to get a beer. And all I heard when I opened that door, I never thought nothing of it. I heard, "Brian, don't do it." And as I opened the door, the garage is open, and I had to have that drink. And I went, and I never even, I didn't turn. And I'm half asleep. I'm coming up. I'm about half drunk still anyway. And I said, "Go back in the house, get his clothes on." I just went ahead and walked out there and got me a drink, went back in the house. Well, it just happened to be Saturday afternoon, and every single body that was mowing the yard at the very same time was out there. So when I wake up Sunday morning, you talking about the four horsemen on me. I mean, I was embarrassed beyond recognition.
Yeah.
And I had all that, and I had stuff like that piled up all through. I mean, everywhere I went, people began to push me away. All my friends pushed me away. People didn't want me around anymore. Or they said, "We don't want you here drinking." Well, I couldn't do anything without drinking anymore.
Yeah, if I can't drink here, I'm not coming.
Right. And although that's just one event, I mean, I just had all these things in my head. So when I didn't have something in me, I had accrued so much wreckage in my past, on top of already alcoholism and my restless cerebral discontent, that I could not stand not to have something in me.
Bless you.
And I wanted to be numb. I wanted to completely and totally numb to the point. I thought about suicide numerous times. I didn't want to. It was just, when you lose hope. When you really lose hope is when those starts coming in.
Yeah.
When we begin to lose hope.
I just didn't know any other way out. This looked like, trying to look for an escape route, and that was one that was there. I didn't want that one.
No,
but it was one that was a possibility, because I didn't know how to get this thing stopped.
Yeah. So when I was about that last round of pancreatitis, I was in the hospital over at Frankfort, Kentucky, and I was laying there and I was thinking about what of all the things I've tried and all the things I've tried and all the things I've done, and I'm going through it because I'm trying to figure this out. Like, this is how I'm gonna fix it this time. And and then the thought occurs to me, you haven't tried AA yet. I don't remember anybody. Maybe I'd guess when I'd been in numerous rehabs. I'm sure I heard about it. I had a big book in my room. I don't know where it came from.
Really?
I cannot remember where I got that at. I know it wasn't at a meeting. Yeah, I think it was at a rehab. Okay. And so I called up and I got the schedule. Told them I was in the hospital with acute pancreatitis. And they said, "Well, that happens. It's like no big deal, Well, yeah. So I got on a bender. I went to some meetings, and I began to go to AA. And there's a line in the book in the foreword, and it talks about those who really tried. Majority got sober once, few after a few attempts, and the rest got better.
Yeah.
And I really, like I said, I didn't try because I didn't work steps. I gave it the best I had. I had gotten so far down that I was completely incapable of being honest with myself. It was not possible for me to be honest with myself. So therefore, I was giving it all I had. Because, and over the 3.5 year stint or 4 year stint that I was in AA before I actually got into work, I did get better. Things did get better. During that period of time, my uncle, I never had no brothers and sisters, so my uncle, he was just a few years older than me, maybe 7 or 8 years older than me, and he was alcoholic, and I watched him kill himself over a period of time. I watched the bitter
drink himself to death,
and he drank himself to death. And let me tell you what, that bitter end is not fast. It is very slow and painful. I can remember the house I live in now in Louisville. He used to live there at one time. It's been in the family for a while. I still see him from time to time sitting there, and he would drink at night with the shades pulled down because he was afraid anybody would see him. But as long as he had that beer in his hand, he was okay. And I would take him beer, and we would sit and hang out. And we were really close. He's the one person I ever confided in before my sponsor, to some degree.
Yeah.
And we were really, really close. And I watched him kill himself. The last year or two, I took him to the hospital, and his liver was cirrhosis and everything. He had so much fluid, they run a needle, and I don't know how long is that. 6 inches?
No,
8 inches?
I'd like to tell her that's 6 inches, but that's about a foot.
Yeah. Well, that's how long a needle they'd run in his side, and they would drain 12 to 13 liters off him. And just as soon as he would come out, I would have to run him by the liquor store. And I would pull into the AA meeting, and he would sit in the truck and drink, and I'd go to the AA meeting. He had no desire. And it got to the point he was doing that twice a week. And I took him up here to what's Suburban's Men now. At that time it was Norton's. And I sat with him until he took his last breath 2 weeks later. And during that time, no, I'm about to
bust.
Yeah. And so during that time, you know, Billy and I have talked about this. The book says half measures avail us nothing. I don't know. I can't say I agree with that. During that time, I'd got a sponsor, and I'd started the process. And there's a difference between writing the inventory and writing a thorough moral inventory. Because I just wrote inventory that time. I wrote down what I wanted to put down. And I wasn't even taking through property. It only took me through resentments. And that's what I made my amends list off of, which is not the way the book lays it out. And but it got me something. And I made some amends. And I remember as he was in ICU, and what few family was left was standing around the room, and his kids and his grandkids. I looked around that room, and that phallus, that live, the only person I'm hurting is myself, was crushed.
Yeah.
Because I looked around that room, and I knew for the first time that I affected everybody I came in contact with. So little by little, you see, I was already in the process when I was in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, yet I wasn't really in the work yet.
Yeah, that's a very new angle to me on the half measures thing, because I would have disagreed until just now. But I totally see what you say. I get that, because I did the same thing. Now that I look at it, I go, yeah, man, I was doing this thing half-assed for a while, and it did get me where I'm at today.
It got me a lot of pain. See, I'm only willing to grow when I'm in enough pain. I am not willing to change sober or drinking unless I get enough pain.
Yeah.
If everything's going good, I'm not going to be willing to change a thing.
Well, you have to start somewhere, right? And like to come in here and go full blast the first time is a damned uncommon thing.
Right. I mean, the last time that I came back and I can remember, I had a walk-in closet in our house, and I was sitting there and watched YouTube and stuff and some other things, and snorted bath salts because it was cheaper than Coke, and drank half a gallon of vodka for about a month, and I'd only come out and go get more dope and booze, and I'd go back in that. I mean, I got
you lived in the closet.
It was a walk-in closet. So I had a little room in there, and it was
Listen
right
to
beside
you
the
justify
bathroom.
and rationalize. It's a walk-in closet.
And I
I
was working on my YouTube page and building my movie making skills.
I see.
He said that's how I justified it. And there in the end, I got that 12 gauge out, and I stuck that thing in my mouth. And my kid's been born at this point, and I have twins, a boy and a girl. They're 8, they'll be 9 December 7th, and they're just a joy. At that time, they were still in diapers. And I got that shotgun out. And you know, it's funny how you ever go to rooms, and even before I got sober, certain things click, certain things stick. Mm-hmm. And just recently before that, for some time or another, I heard about adult children who their parents had committed suicide, especially their father, and how it affected them even then. And I thought about that, and then I heard my kids crying. And there's a guy named Burns B. up here who I heard give a pitch down in Frankfurt years later, and he said God gave me a gift that day. And I never looked at it that way until I met Burns years later. But God gave me a gift that day, and it was for the first time in my life I thought about somebody besides myself. The first time ever that I can ever think of. I thought about those children and how they were going to be affected, and the thought came to me, go back to AA. And then I was in and out of the rooms there for a while, and I got in, and then, of course, I started taking pain pills, not telling nobody, and I told people I was sober, and, God, that was awful. And so my solution was the last 6 months, I was going to bow out and disappear. And that's when the really regular thoughts of suicide were coming in. And I was doing Suboxone and different things, trying not to drink, because at this point, every time I drank, it got so bad that I was trying to find other things to keep me from. And I was incapable of not drinking on my own. You know, I was trying to find other things to do it. And that morning I prayed, and I said, God help me. I said, I can't do this no more. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. And I knew enough about AA, and I've been around the rooms, and I've done the things enough, and I said the big book studies and everything else, and I knew what I had to do. And I said, I'll go the first meeting you want me to go to, and the first person I know that's doing the work, I'll ask them to take me through the book. And I'll do whatever they say, because I had all these things I was never going to tell anybody. And that was my big fear. I wasn't afraid of making the 8 and the 9 step. I was terrified of doing that 4th step or the 5th step. I had things I swore I'd never tell anybody.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then my solution was, if that don't work, then I am going to kill myself. If it doesn't work, then it won't matter anyway. And the thought came to me, it was a Sunday morning, early up morning, and there was a meeting that I never went to, but I'd been there. I knew of it, and I've been there maybe once, twice. And I went down there, and about 10, and I mean, there were some good people there. They just weren't really, there's a lot of mixed groups in AA, and nobody was really doing the deal the way I knew about really being in that book. And it was very clear to me. I mean, it was very clear this is what I had to do, because I'd run out of options. And about 10 minutes later, my first sponsor, Brad G., walks in the room in Frankfort, Kentucky, and he come over and sat right down beside of me, And at the end of the meeting was over. It was a speaker meeting. I don't know who spoke. I got up, stood, and I started babbling. I couldn't even talk. I was just broken. I was completely broken. And my life had been so much worse so many times before. In all these hospitals and jails and all the things that I've done. I've been thrown out 2 car windows. I mean, I've been all kinds of stuff. And I've been so many worse. You know, financially it wasn't the worst. Emotionally it wasn't the worst. Physically it wasn't the worst. But yet I was broken. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just could not take it anymore. And he put his arm on me and said, "Don't worry, kid, I'll take you through the book. You give me a big book and give me directions." And we started meeting at his house every Sunday morning. And that's when this process really, but like I say, those 3.5, 4 years that I was in the rooms, I see guys coming in and out now and they get coins and they go out and I'm like, oh, there goes me, there goes me.
Yeah.
Because it took me a minute.
Yep.
I didn't walk in the room and just say, boom, I'm ready.
Nope.
Although I did have progress through that period of time. Because I was so incredibly sick. There was a joke going around, there's a Bigfoot site in Lawrenceburg, and I'd get drunk for like, say, 17 days, wouldn't cut my hair, wouldn't brush my teeth, wouldn't shower. My ex-wife said, hell, that was just Brian, he's out on drunk, we ain't seen him for 2 days, you know, and they called me Bigfoot for a while. It was just, you know, I went from that and coming out of a walk-in closet thinking I was actually being successful to where I was by the point I was ready to do the work.
Yeah.
There was progress there.
That's what I mean about the looking at half measures thing. You know, as we come in and we're not willing to do the whole deal yet, there actually still is some value. It did lead me to the point that I'm here today. But
I don't know if it was half measures or that's all I can do.
Yeah, right. But I think I understand what you're saying.
You know, the book talks about that comprehensible demoralization. I can't tell the truth from the false. It took a while for that to even come around enough to see the truth that I was actually an alcoholic.
Yeah, there's been somebody said a couple of times it's hit me all the time. I get in these little windows and something will touch me, like you just said, something will click real hard, you know. And in the last few days, there's been a couple of times where that phrase we've heard, that meet somebody where they're at, meet you where they're, you know. Sometimes we just got to meet them where they're at. Right. You know, I want them to be someplace else, but my best service today to some people is meet them where they're at. And you know, I'm glad a lot of people were able to do that with me early on, because the one thing I never did feel, as much as my ego wanted to feel it right and wanted to put it there. I never felt ostracized from AA. I never felt that I was not welcome back.
Never. I know I didn't either. All the crazy stuff I did and coming there drunk, doing stuff in the bathroom.
Coming back, getting my white chips and doing my bullshit again, where I'm back and giving my little pity party.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Keep coming back. And they'd hug me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And offer me help. Want to go eat afterwards? Want to go? Okay.
All right, so when I got with Brad, you know, we began this process and I began the step work. So step one, we admitted we're powerless over alcohol. That's the first part of the step. It's a 3-part disease, alcoholism. I got this thing called a phenomenon of craving. When I drink, I get thirsty. And the more I drink, the thirstier I get. I can't get enough. Like I said, I've been so drunk I couldn't crawl. I've laid in hospital beds and rooms, and they're telling me I'm dying. I keep anchor ties. They got me handcuffed to the bed, and all I can think about is drink. And that's a phenomenon of craving. That's after I take that drink, and that lasts 72 hours for me. I know that almost to the minute because I've detoxed myself so many times. So in other words, if I get drunk last night and I'm thirsty today, I'm still thirsty. See, I've still got this thing called a phenomenon of craving. And there's a second part of the disease called the mental obsession, the mental phenomenon, as the book calls it. And that's this aspect that's just really, you know, the word phenomenon means you don't know can't understand it. And the science can break down why our bodies break down alcohol differently for the physical aspect, but the mental is still misunderstood or not understood. So I would literally walk the floor for 3 nights and 3 days, shaking and sweating till my socks were shaking. Every time I would lay down, my heart was beating out of my chest, and I thought I was going to stroke out. And my eyes would burn. I could not sleep, and I'd come off of that, and my throat would be so raw, and stomach, gut be so tore up. And 4 or 5 days later, I'd think, you know, it wasn't that bad. Just half a pint.
Yeah.
Just half a pint. And it always started that way. Or there was no thought at all, you know. This time is how I'm going to do it differently. You know, I'm just going to get a half pint. And I tried all the ways the book talks about, plus it says adding infinitum, not having it in the house and different things. And I think 2 or 3 of my DUIs were on those half pint runs because I'd go to the top of the hill where the liquor store was. And I go get a half pint, and I go back and get another half pint, and I go, and hell, I would never buy. Why don't I just buy a half gallon? You know, but but I was trying to manage and control my drinking. I didn't realize that I was powerless over this thing. So that's two parts: the physical and the mental, and then there's a hyphen. It said we were powerless over alcohol, hyphen, that our lives had become unmanageable. If it said and our lives had become unmanageable, that would be the same thought, which would mean my life is unmanageable because of my drinking. See, the hyphen designates a separate thought, which means my life is unmanageable when what the book calls a spiritual malady, regardless of. But because so I heard it said, everyone has a spiritual malady. Every single human being has it. Us as alcoholics seem to have it a little bit more extenuated, than you add in the physical and the mental aspect of it.
Yeah.
And that's what really sets us apart with this disease, you know. And it's a three-part disease: physical, mental, spiritual. And that mental aspect, that mental obsession, and coupled with that spiritual malady of all that noise in my head is constantly noise. I've sat in a quiet room and screamed out stop because I wanted my mind to stop, and I did not have the tools at the time, and I did not have the solution at the time to be able to get it to quiet. And the only way to get it to quiet was to drink until oblivion. And what I'm looking for is relief from that. That's my alcoholism, in essence, and alcohol is my solution to that. So when I sat with Brad and he told me, he said, you know, I had to have something as good as alcohol as a solution or I'm not going to quit. Even though how bad it got, I still knew the really sick thing was, as bad as it got, I still knew what to expect from alcohol. I still knew I could get that relief. And I had to have relief. I could not stand it for very many days at all without it. And he said that this program was equivalent to, in his experience, better than the alcohol. And that's been my experience as well.
Mine as well.
So, and it took me a while. It talks about in the book, it says we have conceded to our innermost being that we're alcoholics, and this is the first step in recovery. That's not in the first step, but the conceit is to admit to my innermost self against something that I originally disagreed with. And I was hell-bent on not being an alcoholic. I'd have been a drug addict, schizophrenic, bipolar, anything you wanted me to be, sex maniac, anything, but not an alcoholic. I'm not, because my perception of an alcoholic was weak-willed, and I was not weak-willed. It was impossible. It is not a willpowered all thing.
Right.
Alcoholics are some of the most strong willpowered people I know. Who in hell gets up after drinking like that and gets up and pushes himself as hard as I did and some of the guys I know to work the next day and do the things they do to show that they're not? That's a lot of willpower.
Yep. You
know.
It's an interesting thing when you get somebody that's not one of us that wants to do that little argument about willpower.
You just set your mind to it, Brian. I set my mind on everything else to it, and I just could not. Yeah. I really, really gave it everything I had. And I hear stuff in Indian. So my first sponsor, Brad, told me a story. He said there's a newcomer and an old timer that goes in a meeting. And they come out of the meeting, and the old timer asked the newcomer, said, "What'd you think about that?" And he said, "Oh, it wasn't too bad." The newcomer asked the old timer, said, "What'd you think?" He said, "There's a lot of BB." The newcomer says, "What's BB?" He said, "I don't know, but it's not AA." Okay, you hear a lot of stuff in meetings. It's not AA, and that's just the reality of it. And to hear it for the first time with Brad was pretty amazing. When he took me through this book, it's like it took a whole new light. I sit in big books and I heard it read and everything, but when he read me word for word, line for line, this book became alive. And the only thing I had experience with in the beginning was the first step, because I was in active alcoholism. Right, but over time, the whole book has took shape, and I've got experience all through this book now.
Yep.
Through my sobriety.
Like somebody said, it's wet ink. Every time I read it, I see something that didn't seem to be there before.
Yeah. Or, I got 3 guys in the book right now, plus a big book study going, and I'll sit with one of them and hear it one way, or I hear their experience, and I'm thinking, well, there's just that little change of perception. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, that happens right here across this table every time I talk to somebody, too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll hear something that says, that's... And I'm open today. I don't have to be closed off to that new stuff. Right. There was a time when if it didn't fit my narrative, it wasn't coming in.
Right. The book says open-minded, willing, and honest. And I was just open-minded. I had been beat down and broken enough through pain and discomfort to be open-minded. I was like 51% on the fence to get sober and 49% still wanted to drink. And that 1% was all I had. You know, I mean, I don't want anybody to think that, you know, I got to be at full force with it. I wasn't full force with this thing. I was just out of options. If it was still working for me, I'd still been drinking. But I had just that 1% because I was constantly teeter-tottering back and forth between whether I would continue to do this thing or not. But it was really clear to me I needed to do it. So, and then, like I said, the unmanageability of the spiritual matter, I get in that more in the fourth or fifth step. So, step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I really had a hard time with this step. I was so agnostic, I believe there was something bigger than me in this world, especially after doing in vitro with the kids. So the doctors can enhance the process of getting pregnant, although they can't make it happen. But when you do in vitro, you get to actually see the process, you know. And
both my kids are IVF babies.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And I remember I watched this thing, and I was still drinking then, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I remember it was like a light bulb come on. I could not argue the fact that there was a God. It was interesting. I Googled this morning to see how many. I was Googling some stuff in the big book, and it said God's used 134 times in the first 164 pages. That's like 1.2, every 1.2 pages it's on. So, but I really struggled with this, and it comes to a point in the book in the second step, and it says, you know, we had to have our own conception, and Brad stops me, and he asks me, he says, do you have your conception? And before he done that, when he had me do the work, there's a lot of capitalized words, like God's capitalized, right, G-O-D, and then higher power, and there's a bunch of other ones.
In we agnostics, there's a ton of capitalized
I think 15,
words.
Maybe 17.
17, is that what it
17 is? words, and I had to write every one of those in my own definition of while I was reading through that chapter. And my conception was really simple because I was raised in a Hellfire Brimstone church. And I don't know what they said, I know what I heard. This is where I come to what I was like.
Yeah,
See,
right.
I don't know what it was like. I don't know what other people were doing. I know what I was like we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
I know what I heard, and I heard that I'm screwed. No matter what I do, I'm going to hell, so therefore I'm going to have a good time going. I learned later on that the absence of God is hell for me. So I walked in that hell, blocked off from the sunlight of spirit by my own resentment, my own remorse, my own fear for all those years. So when I got this conception, it was real simple. It was just I wanted a God who loved me unconditionally, and I didn't understand what unconditional meant. And then I also added in there because I wrote it on a piece of paper, and I said, when I mess up, he loves me when I mess up too. I didn't understand what unconditional even meant.
Yeah. I
never experienced it. At least to myself, I never experienced it. Therefore, I couldn't define it, you know. Step 3, make a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him, or as I've been taught to put that in first person, as I understand him. So Brad told me, it was Clint Hodges' story that he told me.
It's okay.
So,
another one of those things is when a guy says his name on, because a lot of people say their first and last name out there on the net.
He does.
And
right?
If they're doing it, I don't feel so, you know, I'm off the hook too.
Right.
No big deal, brother.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he is dead too.
Is he dead? Oh, that way I can use his full name. So anyway, Clint Hodges. So Brad told me this story in reverence of how to get to this third step, because he told me, he said, your life will no longer be your own. Well, that scared the hell out of me. Because I was still thinking that I had this thing kind of licked, that I could figure this thing out. So he tells me a story of Clint, and he's 15 years sober, and he's got a wife and a girlfriend, and he does on his third step, and he loses everything. And I'm sure that was going to be happening to me. Well, I already lost everything and ain't got anything back yet, but I was convinced that was going to happen to me. And it says we thought long and hard for taking this step, so I thought all week, because I had a week, and I didn't know whether I was going to do it or not. I just know I took the action. I got in the car and I drove out there that Sunday, and when he said, "Are you ready?" I got down on my knees with him and we did that third step. And then I had to help him up because he had a bad hip. And I really thought that the skies would part and things would come down, and nothing happened. I felt, let me rephrase that. I won't say nothing else. I felt, I didn't feel any different.
Really?
Zero. I didn't feel a bit different. And I got up, and maybe I got a little more irritable and restless than I already was. I don't really remember. And what I know is he started teaching me how to write inventory. And that next day, I began writing a thorough and moral inventory for the first time in my life. You see, like I said before, I was incapable of being honest with myself completely. And this is not, without, was my grand sponsor says divine intervention. I like to call it a third party. So when I sit down with a guy and take him through the book, or my sponsor sit down with me and takes me through the book, there's a third party that intervenes here. Call it whatever you want.
Good point, like that.
And something begins to take over when it's done honestly, right? And left to my own devices, I know what writing inventory looked like. I can write inventory without it being thorough and moral. Thorough and moral just means honest. And I began to write a thorough and moral inventory. And I wrote down things I swore I'd never do. And I mean, I wrote. And for the first week, I wrote for 3 solid hours a day. And it was driving me crazy. But it was the first time in my life so I drank for relief, drove for relief. And for the first time in my life, I started feeling relief. And that relief wasn't taken away the next morning when I woke up, hungover and remorseful and all the things that I had. It was stuck. And so I was driving myself crazy because I want more, right? Well, 1's good, 5's got to be better. So I just kept writing. And some guy told me to break it down to an hour today, so I broke it down to an hour twice a day the second week. Because I don't take directions very well.
Yeah.
Because I got that thing called peculiar mental twist, and I'm exception to the rule again. And I wrote for 2 solid weeks. And I went in there and I sat down with him, and we read through the 5th step in the big book. And then he asked me what I left out, and I told him. And I did leave one thing out, the one thing I swore I would never tell. And I left that out, and I told him that. And he took me so lovingly and kindly and patiently through this process. And he was very gentle. And it was very, so he lived way out in the country. He didn't have a TV. He had a wood-burning stove. It was wintertime. 30 days after I was sober, I wrote him. I was doing my 5th step. I packed my lunch because I knew. I mean, I wrote pages and pages and pages of resentments, pages and pages and pages of fear, pages and pages of relationships. And I knew I was going to be there a while, so I packed my lunch. And he liked these candy bars from Kroger's, and they were like these organic chocolate. So I got him 2, and every time because I was afraid he'd kick me out or he wouldn't like me, because I'm not enough. So therefore, I would hand him a candy bar every so often. So try to coax him into hearing me out because I didn't want to die, and I really didn't want to die. I never did. I realize now that I was just out of solutions. I never actually wanted to take it. I had 2 friends at 17. I was 2.5 years sober. And they took their lives, out of hope. And I never actually wanted that. That was just an option, as you said, So I began to tell him all these things that I swore I'd never say. And at the end of it all, he got up, stood up, he looked at me, and said, "Kid, if I can love you after all that, God can too." And he gave me a hug. And I left and I went home and I did 6 and 7 right out of the book. Now 6 and 7 are probably 2 of the most untalked about, most powerful steps in all the steps. It's almost as if we're supposed to take the book off the shelf, sit for an hour quietly, ask God, and then do the prayer, which is not the same as the 7th step. The 7th step says, or 6th step says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. We're entirely ready to have God remove all. I'm not entirely ready for God to remove them all today. There's a few of them I'm pretty partial to. And then 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. When the 7th step prayer says remove the shortcomings or remove the defects that stand in the way of being service to you and to others. I don't decide which defects are taken and which are left. As Billy tells me, he says, I might be holding on to one. So everyone's a teacher. They teach me what to do and they teach me what not to do, right? And my greatest teachers, one of them sitting in this room, teach me as much what not to do by their own experience as they do as what to do. And a lot of times I learn what to do from what not to do, right? At least I got a starting point. No, not do these things. And
I like it. Somebody says, how do I know if I'm in God's will? Well, a lot of times I don't, but most of the time I know when I'm not.
Right. Right. I'm pretty sure he don't want me drinking.
Yeah.
Pretty sure on that. And I'm pretty
My
sure
gut will tell me, yeah, buddy, you really shouldn't be doing that.
Right. And some of the, like I said, some of the defects that I'm not holding on to, that might be left for teaching other people what not to do.
Yeah, right. No doubt. Good point.
I like to think that I'm teaching people what to do. My ego doesn't want to hear that I'm teaching what not to do. Because I've got this but what I find, let me back up into the steps, or to the inventory process, So I got a little ahead of myself. You got resentments, 4 columns. And Billy likes to call it 3A or 3B. I can sit in a bar and tell you who I was resentful at,
And why?
Why, and how that affected me. You know, did it affect my ambition, my self-esteem, my personal relations with or without sex in my pocketbook? I can tell you that sitting in a bar. And you got this, what Billy calls, because you got to go, it says turning back, there's a prayer in the inventory process in relationship column. And we go back to that between column 3 and column 4. And that's where I give it over to the higher power to handle it. See, I don't remove if I could remove my resentments, if I could have fixed my character defects, and these things I was talking about with the BB, you know, I hear things like, don't drink, come back tomorrow. If I could just not drink, I wouldn't need to come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
I was unable, I drank against my will, not with it, you see. So when I'm in that process, and then when I give it over to the higher power between 3 and 4, and that prayer Billy calls 3B, then I go to 4 and I write down my character defects. I hear all kinds of other BB in the rooms. Well, I got a character defect of shopping and this and that. That's not a character defect. That's a symptom of. There's only 4: self-seeking, dishonest, and afraid. And out of those, and with mine, there's always afraid in there. Those were the symptoms of all my actions and reactions come from. So I get down, then I go to the fear column, and it says we listed our fears. I wrote down on my first one I had 97 fears, and the book says we're driven by 100 forms of fear. I called Brad scared to death I was going to get drunk. I think I left out 3, and I don't know what they are. He said, if you're straining, you're done. And the way he says, and we list why we have these fears, and what he taught me is why we believe. And then, like I said back in the beginning, so I start believing Brian has to act, think, look, all these a certain way in order to be okay, to be accepted as. I can't just be who I am. See, that's not feasible because I'm not enough. And in that process, I found that I relied on self constantly. I was afraid God wouldn't. I knew I couldn't. You know, even as a child, when I watch my children and they have fear, they're relying on self, and they don't even know any different.
Yep.
And I was no different than a child. I was relying on self, and I knew that self cannot fix self. It cannot. And I knew that, and in my internal core, I knew that, even though in my thought process of what I can conjure in my own little mind that I think so grand, in my internal core, I knew that I self couldn't fix self.
It's age-old wisdom too, man. From way back, the whole stuff with Confucius and Buddha and all that. The problem can't be solved using the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a reason that fear column's in the center, because it radiates into all my resentments and it radiates all my relationships. And I learned there that I learned on my first inventory that I have no relationship with or trust in or hope in a higher power taking care of me. I rely completely on Brian, and I found that I believed that God wouldn't, and I couldn't. And then when I got with Billy, he's taught me that deeper into that selfish self-centeredness, which is the root of my problem, the book says. This is down to the root. This is down to the problem. I've got to understand, I've got to be able to identify a problem before I can find a solution. I cannot seek a solution without knowing what the problem is. So now I'm getting into the problem, the real problem, and what it looks like. And Billy's taught me, you know, my script is not much different from his, is that I believe that I'm not enough, and I've said this a number of times, I'm not enough. Therefore, I've got all these facades and masks and all these things. And then I go into my relationship column, and there's 9 across the board, you know, and who they were, and harm, and all these things as the book lays them out. And as I go through that, I see how I have acted and reacted and why I have lied. I only lie to you because I believe I have to. I only steal from you because I believe I have to. See, I won't lie or steal or any of these other things from you that are not spiritual principles, as long as I don't believe I have to. But I believe I have to, I won't do it. If they call it in another BB in the rooms, people pleasing. Both Brad and Billy taught me that's just being dishonest. That's all that is. I'm not being honest. I don't have enough. I don't think of this person as a human being enough to be honest with them. You know, and I'm too afraid of what you're going to think about me if you see who I really am to tell you the truth about me. Therefore, I lie to you. And I find these are the truth of the facts I found out about myself in the inventory process. You know, the book talks about working with it, and early on talks about in italics, you know, properly armed with the facts about ourselves. We can help another call it. Well, that's the facts about myself. And that belief, that that can be a very, I hear all these things about the terrible fourth step. Let me tell you something. It is a painful process in the sense my beliefs are being crushed, which it feels like my feelings are being hurt. That's what we call it. Those are just beliefs being crushed. And at the same time, it's a very freedom step.
Yeah.
That's when I started stepping into the freedom. Then I go into 6 and 7. So as I look into this inventory process and I see how my character defects, these 4, have radiated into every area of my life, how they're shoving me around, making my life unmanageable. I'm going around seeking relief and doing things that I swore I'd never do. Now, this all came about now. I'm back to the problem looking out. I'm looking at it from a different angle. This is when I'm entirely ready to have God remove the defects, character, stand away from his service to him and to others. Because that's a very, not only have I looked at it, I've told another man this, and that third party that's in the room as well, and I'm like, okay, it's time for you to take it. Now, the way it almost reads in the book and the way I've heard it, it's almost as if we do this in one-time deal. And these steps, as I get on into 10, we're going to talk about inventory again. That's when 6 and 7 need to be revisited. Every time I do inventory, I need to revisit 6 and 7. Bill Wilson said this is the steps to separate the men from the boys in the 12 and 12. I mean, these are really. Don M., my grand sponsor, said that he said this only the first 9 years he almost killed himself trying to fix himself. Bob White, one of the old timers, said, he said, I wish somebody just said, slow down, cowboy, you can't fix you. See, everybody's a teacher. They're by what they learn, they teach me what not to do is what's teach me what to do.
Yep.
To go back to 6 and 7, back to 6 and 7. So we sat down again, and in the book, it reads, so the men's process doesn't come from the resentment column. It comes from the relationship column. There's a column in there, and I hate to misquote the book, that says, where have we been selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate, and whom had we hurt? There's a difference between hurt and harm. I can hurt you just for a one-time deal. When I harm you, like my mother or my ex-wife, they didn't know who was coming home. They didn't know if Happy Brian, Mad Brian, Drunk Brian, or if I was coming home or I was going to end up dead in the hospital. Those kind of things are harm. Right there is where that comes from into my men's list. So I sit down and I make this list of amends of people I've harmed. Now, I was not ready to go in front of all these people. Hell no. I balked pretty much all the way through this thing, and it still worked. So what Brad had me do is I took index cards and I wrote individually on each index card their name and how to get a hold of them, and I put a minus or a plus by it. The minus was if I was unwilling, and the plus was if I was willing. And it was interesting to see over a period of a year or so that how those minuses became pluses. And I don't remember anything from a day-to-day that was significant, but as I continued this process, it just took over. And of course, the men's process was every one of them I thought was going to be horrible were okay. Mm-hmm. I don't do the men's for me. It's not for me. It's for that other person. It's self-enlightened interest because I do get something out of it, although it's not for me. It is for that person I'm harmed. Steps 1 through 9 are to clean up the wreckage of my past. That is what they're for. Clean it up so that I can get rid of all that stuff in my head and all that remorse and guilt and fear and horror that I'm carrying so that I can be set free enough to start a new life. And that's what this is. It's a new life.
Mm-hmm.
The book says I'm reborn.
Reborn.
So we talk about all these promises, and this is something that's been on my mind lately. So I've even heard it read in the book. The 9-step promises are always read at the beginning of a meeting. I've even heard it read in some lately that these are the AA promises. No, they're not.
No,
they're the 9th step. And they're not even all the 9 steps. They're the majority of. The first step is right here in the title page. The story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And this book, from first step on, and the doctor's opinion, is full. I read it. I looked it up just out of it, and they came up with roughly 150 promises from page 164 in this book. One of them is we are reborn. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what happens in this process. I begin to get free. I begin to get reborn. I become a new person. I get a new mind. I get really old and become new. I called Brad one time. I said, Brad, I feel like I'm losing my mind. He said, get rid of that damn thing. It ain't doing you no good and let God give you a new one. I'm thinking, why do I call these guys? You know. And he's really something. So, 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it. I learned how to do inventory in 4 and 5. That doesn't mean I do it one time and I stop, but that doesn't mean I have to go back through steps and rewrite inventory. If I'm doing 10 on a daily basis properly, now I'm speaking, this is how I've done it. I have tried every single way possible to do this process my way. And only when the pain, like I said earlier, I'm only unwilling to change when I'm uncomfortable enough and the pain is great enough.
Yep.
So through the process of trying it my way to the point that I get to that jumping off place. The book talks about the jumping off place for the alcoholic. Well, I've hit it a lot of times with sobriety. I can't live with or without how I'm living anymore, and I've got to give up and say, all right, big guy, you take the wheel. I'm done.
Absolutely.
So this is how I know. I'm not saying that I'm doing this thing right when I'm talking this. I know what it looks like. I know it looks like my life when I have done it to the best of my ability, and I mess this thing up on a daily basis. But I'm giving this thing called grace because all I really got to do is try.
Yep. There's also a line in there that echoes what you said. It says, we will tell you what we have done. That's as simple as what this is. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's, but this is what I did.
And it says we don't have a monopoly on this thing either.
Right.
This was the only thing that worked for me. Yeah. But I met a lot of people that spiritually awakened that aren't alcoholics that have found it another way.
Yeah. And there's other ways to get sober. I don't know any of them. I know this one, but there's bound to be.
Yeah, there's other people that have found it.
Yeah.
They found it. Actually, a buddy of mine died last night.
Really?
And he died sober.
Damn.
He had lung cancer. He got down in Frankfurt, and I got the text.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
But that's I felt that at first when I was talking to your sponsor at the party when I got the text, and I thought, well, hell with it. He died sober. And he said, that's right, he's in a big party in the sky now, man. So that's the goal, right? To live a happy, joyous, and free while we're here, to help others, and to die sober.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I always like that. Somebody gave me that. It's that we got a real bad connotation of 13 stepping around. There's a word for there's some terms for what we do when we're doing that. But somebody redefined that for me and said 13th step is when you die sober. I prefer to lean on that 13th step.
Yeah, I'll go with that one versus the other one. I've tried them both. That one worked a lot better for me.
That's the one I prefer to think of when I hear that word.
Yeah.
Or hear that phrase.
So there is the most important word in all the steps. It's not powerless. It's not God. It's number on the first word of step 10 is continue. Continue. I don't graduate. I don't arrive. I get a daily reprieve. That's all I get. And that's all contingent on my spiritual condition. And not on my spiritual condition, on my maintenance of my spiritual condition. Because my spiritual condition can change all throughout the day. But if I'm doing the maintenance steps, 10, 11 are the maintenance steps. 1 through 9, clean out wreckage of my past. 10, continue to do. If I'm continuing to do it, if I'm doing it, what I've been taught, and I finally heard from Bob White and Don M. and Billy and other people who taught me, when I hit 10 and I do something, I need to go back 6, 7. I don't just talk to somebody and roll on. Okay, and there's a lot of prayers in the 10th step about this as well. When I go back 6 and 7 and ask him to remove these character defects down, way to be a service to me and others. 11, one of my favorite steps. Probably my favorite step because I don't really like 10. I just do it because I have to. Like I said, I've tried every way around it. The first 8 or 9 months I was sober, I stopped at 9. I kept doing the things that I'd been doing other than drinking and doping. I was still acting like a raging active alcoholic. I got in a lot of pain. I was accruing. I cleaned up the wreckage of my past to a certain degree, and yet I was accruing new wreckage. So I go to Brad, and Brad, what am I doing? What do I do? And he knew what I was doing, but he wanted me to. He said, what aren't you doing? And I wasn't doing 10 and 11. I wasn't doing the maintenance steps. I got to that 9 step, and I started resting on my laurels. Thank God I got enough pain. And so I started doing 10 and 11. And 11 for me was very hard. I hear a lot of people say this, well, I try to meditate. No. If I try to pray, I'm praying. If I try to meditate, I meditate. Meditating's simple. It's not a specific art. There's 1,000 different ways to do it.
Yep.
I was simply taught to sit and breathe. Just sit and breathe. Watch the breath. And as my mind wanders, and I've become aware that my mind wanders, when I become aware that my mind is wandering, then I'm aware again. And I'm back to the present moment, and I come back to the breath real gently. And I do that over and over. We did a little 10-minute breathing here before we started this deal. And I like to breathe through that irritable, restless discontent because I have that first 5 or 6 minutes, 4 minutes, it depends where I'm at, to where I feel like I'm done, I need to get up and do something. and I like to breathe through that to the point that I'm okay right where I'm at. And that's where I get that peace of mind. Because that's the goal. That's the gift I get, is peace of mind. That's what I wanted the whole entire time that I was drinking drugs. I wanted peace of mind. I wanted relief from my alcoholism, and that's what I was seeking. But I wanted permanent relief. This is the only thing I've ever found that works on a day-to-day basis.
Amen. Me too.
And the more I do it, the better it gets. Billy told me a year and a half ago when I moved here that I was just touching the tip of the iceberg. And in that year and a half's time, I could tell you a lot has changed in a lot of good ways for me. And that's just because I'm continuing.
Yeah.
And I'm doing prayer and meditation on a daily basis. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening. That's saying I have had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Okay, now I've had this awakening, which is the solution to my alcoholism. It says that right in the back of the book in Spiritual Awakening. I try to carry this message to alcoholics. I try to carry it. That means I do my part. I try, right? And practice these principles in all of our affairs. So, the last 4 or 5 chapters in the book, after working with others, is dedicated to nothing but practice these principles in our lives. Because I don't spend the majority of my life in a room. It says it's a what's the word it's used in the big book? It's like a hobby, avocation, working with others. Right? Most of my time is spent at work, and it's spent with the children. And, when I started praying and meditating, doing 10, 11, about 9, 10 months sober, guys came to me and asked me to sponsor him. And then another guy came to me and asked me to sponsor him. Yep. And then another guy came to me and asked me to sponsor him. And I started sharing, and I became secretary of our home group. And then I became, what's it called? Not GSR, but
IGR?
No, your standby. What's the word?
Alternate?
Alternate GSR, and I became GSR, and I became, God's got a funny sense of humor. I had resentment towards treatment and police predominantly at that point that really stood out. So the only chair at the service level was treatment, and I took it to be in it because I went where Brad went because I wanted what he had. And then a police officer moved in beside of us, and I got to know him really well, and he's a pretty good dude. And that's those kind of things have happened to me over and over and over, and helped me get rid of this deal. So that took off, and in about 2 years, we were about to bankrupt the company. A big job come up up here in Indiana for a road job for me to go do, and I took a group conscience. I wanted out of it. I didn't want to go, and the group conscience voted against me in the family, and I went. And I tell you, I was taken, and I didn't know this until I look back on it now, once again in hindsight. So my higher power, which was nothing wrong with this, was originally actually my sponsor. And then it became my home group was my higher power. I was very active in my home group. I was there. We had 2 meetings a week. I was there every time the door opened. I was the one opening the door. I made sure we had a meeting. I mean, that was my thing for like a year and a half. I was at the district level. I was going to area meetings. I was on the service side. I was doing all 3 legacies. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And life was really happening. And then this thing, it up and picked me up and rooted me and took me off because we were bankrupt. And I was ready to do something else, sell everything. And when we were looking at selling everything, my dad and mom were older and they didn't going to have much. And the group conscience voted against me. I went to Indiana because I follow group conscience, and even though I don't want to. And I realized through that period of time, I was not going to meetings much. I wasn't able to. We was working 7 days a week, daylight dark, for a long time. But the one thing I never quit doing, I'd call Brad. He'd say, "Keep breathing, kid." And I'd call him in inventory, and I'd pray and meditate every day. Every single day. And what I did is I developed with a relationship through that period of time because out of desperation, everything I've learned, I've been given the gift of desperation.
Right, yeah.
And through the gift of desperation, I've been given willingness, open-mindedness, and honesty. Right? That's been my experience. And through that gift of desperation, I was given, I developed a relationship with this higher power that I honestly don't understand and don't need to because I see miracles. I see 3 miracles in this room today. There's no reason why all of us shouldn't be dead or drinking right now.
Yep.
Everybody's amazed when somebody goes out and gets drunk. I'm amazed when we don't. I'm amazed when we don't. I'm amazed when my buddy died sober from lung cancer, and he didn't drink over that. And I know how he drank because he drank like I did. And a lot of things have changed. When I was up there for all that time, I came back, told her I wanted a divorce. We had a family home here in Louisville. We lived in Lawrenceburg, so I moved up here. Ran over to my grandfather's meet. We went through a new pair of glasses with Chuck Chamberlain. That was a very eye-opening experience for me, a very growing time. It was helping God's kids for free and for fun, do what they need done. First time I heard that, I was in Indiana, and I had it on YouTube, and I'm peeling around my apartment, and I heard what Chuck say was, I help God's kids for free and for fun, and I didn't hear anything, and I heard him say, and I got rich. I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So I went around helping God's kids for fame and fortune for about 4 months, and my ass was falling off. And I moved to Louisville, and I called Billy, because when I called Brad, see, Billy used to be my grand sponsor. And Brad said, we're moving to Louisville, call Billy, he'll take care of you. I always cry somewhere along this.
I like it. I cry every day, man.
It's been a powerful journey, man.
Yeah, man.
I was so afraid when I got here. I was terrified. And I was terrified I was screwing up my kids. I was terrified I was out of God's will. And like, I have all this power. It tells me in step 2 that lack of power is my dilemma. But I think, I'm delusional enough to think that I have this power. And I got here, and I had all these fears. And I've been just constantly had the right people come into my life, like Billy, like you. And I met through another one of our brothers, is the one that got me into spiritual underground to begin with. That got me over there. And I went through the book with Chuck Chamberlain. And Billy told me, he said, oh, yeah, Chuck Chamberlain, help God's kids for free and for fun. And I said, free and for fun? I had that completely backwards, But that's just how I think. And I need help because I'm sick. And I need help today just as much. The only difference between my management ability today and the day I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is I'm a lot more aware of it today. I'm a lot more aware of how much I need help, that I can't do this thing alone. And I know what it looks like. I know what wreckage I can cause sober or dry, if you will. And life's really took off, man. I've had a lot of things come into my life lately. Back when I was still drinking, I had this idea of what I would like Brown to look like in the industry that I'm in. And all those things recently have come into my life and happened, and I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I was at the doctor's office and get a call that I'm president of the chapter of the state. I skipped the meeting because I didn't think they'd want me there. I was afraid that I wouldn't intentionally. And I'm coming out of the chiropractor's office and they're saying, congratulations, you're president of the chapter. And these things just keep happening.
Yeah, my experience too.
I got guys asking me to take them through the book. We got a big book study going on, and I've been asked to do another big book study with some guys. I don't know how many we got interested yet, and then I've been asked to speak. But I guess the most amazing thing that's happened for me is this summer, this is how I do. So construction industry slows down. Right at the beginning of summer when the school kids go on break. And we really come to a stop, which we've been running hard for over 2 years. I mean, wide open. I'd barely seen my kids. I was traveling. I was chasing the man, as Billy tells me. I was trying to fix everything in just a couple of years to build me back up to where I believed I needed to be. My life is still very much unmanageable today. And I really don't know what to do without direction. Without that third party, without divine intervention, I really don't do well. And so it slowed down, and the whole time my mind is fretting, we're going to do about money, we're going to do about money, we're going to do about money. At the same time, I'm able to spend a lot, and I mean a lot of time with my children over this past summer. And even sober, when I first got sober, when the kids, I got twins, like I said, and they'd come in, and I would split, man. I'd go to the gym. I'd hang out in meetings all day. I wouldn't come home. I mean, I wasn't a dad. I used to tell Brad all the time, Brad, I want to be a good dad. And he said, why don't you just try being a dad? And I wasn't able to. I didn't know that, but I wasn't a dad. I wasn't even present, right? I was non-existent. I was just a physical form sitting there. And today I'm present with him. And through this summer, it hit me around the end of the summer, I realized one day that we have our own relationship now. And I do it all, man. I do the cooking, the cleaning, and the washing the clothes, and the wiping butts, and the busting hind ends, and the wiping up tears, and holding them, and they come crawling to bed with me in the morning, and all that beautiful stuff.
Yeah, man.
And that's just,
Miracles.
That in itself to me is one of the biggest blessings I've been given. And I've been given a lot of blessings. I've been given some people that are true, like you, that are true brothers of mine. It's like I said, I didn't have any. I didn't have any siblings. My uncle was my closest thing, and him dying of alcoholism saved my life. I saw the bitter end.
Yeah.
And that helped motivate me to get me Because I knew, it's like I knew there was epiphany light went on. I knew where I was headed, and I knew that's how I was going to go. If I didn't pull the trigger, that's how I was going to die. It was going to be slow and painful and destroy and hurt everybody around me.
That was my path, for sure. You said that brotherhood thing. You know, I always get reminded of that on that last page of that book. It says, he will help you create the fellowship you crave. And I had no idea the whole time that's what I was looking for. That's really what I was searching for. Every time I put a beer in me, it was looking for a buddy. I go back to this thing, you know, I mean, I can root my stuff down to being the dude. You know, really all I want is not to be the last kid standing on the side when we're picking kickball teams, man. Right. Fucking invite me in. Let me be a part of. That's what I wanted from the beginning, and I found that here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a really beautiful deal. It's really amazing, actually. You know, and I still got this. So I was telling Billy one day, I got all this going on, and I said, Billy, it seems like a dream. Like it's not real. He said, it's because you think you're not enough. I still believe I'm not enough, and this shouldn't really be happening to me.
Yep.
But you look around, and it's happening to me.
Yeah, I got to keep on pinching myself.
I mean, it's really happening. All these things are really happening in my life, and I've done jobs, and things are coming on the business side, on the father side, on the AA side, and all these different things are coming in my life. And I still believe I'm not enough.
Yeah.
So I just keep doing this deal. And I've always been taught, and it's something I learned here recently about myself that I've been struggling with. Of all things I've done wrong, and I've done everything I can think of wrong because I've done it my way, is I've been told I got to fit my life in AA. I can't fit my AA into my life because when I fit AA into my life, I don't have no time for AA.
Yep.
And I've tried a long time to fit AA into my life.
Yep.
And even up here. And that has been slowly changing. You know, you knew me when I first got here. I was pretty dark. Mm-hmm. I got in a dark spot, and I've been told recently that my light's back on again.
They are.
So, and it's and I've been told by a lot of old timers that it happens like that at times. We'll have times that, you know, we'll get off the beam and then back on, and
like certain trials and low spots.
But those trials and low spots are what get me uncomfortable enough to grow.
Yep. Love that.
So I just do the deal, and I do what Brad taught me. He said, "I'm not taking you through the book to get sober. I'm taking you through the book to get sober, so that you take other alcoholics through the book." And that's what I do today. That is my primary purpose.
Yeah, you walk through all those steps, and you mentioned something about seeing that in yourself, and not only doing this and only doing that. And usually, if somebody's not, like we say, got the juice in their life, if their lights aren't on, if their juice isn't in their life, usually if you talk to a guy, you'll find out where the hole is in that program. 9 times out of 10, they ain't meditating. The other time, they're not sponsoring people. There's some other holes here and there, but yeah, if you're.
I was doing 11 at 10 a little bit. I was doing a whole lot of 11, 9 and 12. Although I did learn, I didn't understand the second part of the 12 step when I was in Indiana on that road job. I understood help carrying the message. I did not understand how to be a father or any of those things. I didn't know how to practice these principles in all my affairs. And I began to learn as I built this relationship. I started practicing principles. I started being kinder. I started once in a great while, because I remember one day I called Brad and he said, "What'd you do today?" And I did this, and I thought about this guy. He said, wait a minute, Brian. He said, "You thought about somebody for more than 30 seconds?" He said, "That's a miracle. If you thought of anybody more than yourself for 30 seconds, it's a miracle." And I love
when my sponsor pulls that, because he's so many times I call him with some kind of bullshit, and he will just turn it right around, and like that's the Chuck Taylor's thing, that different pair of glasses thing. Instantly, it's like I can almost like visualize him take my glasses off my face and put some new ones on my head and go, look at it now.
It's just a little change perception to all this. And that's all it is to go from hell.
That's what you said. I can't do this by myself. I can't. I got to have this fellowship and these people around me, and I got to have that sponsor in my life, and I got to let him in. I got to call him with all my stupid thoughts and all my stuff that I'm doing, or because I'm not doing that, I'm working contrary to what that book tells me to do.
And I tried not only drinking to do it by myself, I tried sober to do it by myself.
Yeah, enough work. That's what I said. Self don't fix self. You said it earlier. We don't. The problem is not solved in the same consciousness it's created.
I have to have the fellowship.
I love
just
it
as
too,
much as
man.
I've got to have newcomers.
Yeah.
And there's much difference between the membership and the fellowship. Anyone with a desire can be a member. But those walking the sunlight of the Spirit, those doing the deal, doing these steps, those are the fellowship.
Yeah.
Our home group is full of them.
Yeah, and new guys all the time, man. We give away so many new 1-year chips every year, and that is really cool in itself. What's a step cooler than that is we gave almost every single one of them 2-year chips the next year, and then that momentum is there and established, and we're just so tight that people want to stay. Right? They see what we're doing, they hear us, and all that, and I'm part of it too now. You know, I come in seeing that, and now I'm actually get to be on the other side of it, to stand there and be one of them guys, and that's pure miracle there too. You know, breaking in houses just a minute ago.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's one last thing I got, and it's this deal. So I told you in the beginning, or at the beginning of the process, that the alcoholism is a three-part disease: physical, mental, spiritual. The Alcoholics Anonymous, the way I've been taught and what I practice has actually worked, is a three-part solution: steps, traditions, concepts. And the old sign that we don't have anymore because it got into a copyright issue or something was a pyramid,
circle and a
triangle. Well, there's a reason there's a triangle is it's equal on all three sides, which means all three sides are equally important. The circle completes us.
Right.
Steps is the physical part. Traditions. So when I was in the steps before I started practicing traditions, I was still getting in conflict with everybody. I didn't know about unity and group conscience and all these things. And I started practicing these traditions, and I'm doing these today. I do them with the company. I do them everywhere I go. With my children. It's amazing how easy it makes life, man. There's no conflict there. And then the service side is the spiritual aspect: physical, mental, spiritual. When I practice all three of these, the circle completes itself. And these facades, you know, Bob White talked about it, how he'd like to achieve it, and I would too. Complete transparency. This is exactly, because, you know, when I still go to work, I'm work Brian, and I'm dad Brian, you know, and just be clear, man, be transparent. I haven't achieved it yet.
Yeah.
But when I do that, when I do all three legacies, it chips away at those facades and those masks that I've accrued so much over the years. And that's kind of my ultimate goal before I do die sober, would be to, if I had a dream, would just be transparent.
Yeah.
One day. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. True authenticity.
Yep.
There was that sigh.
Yep. I'm done.
I told you. I hear it every time, man. That is too cool. Another thing I liked is, you know, I know the picture thing is something that we don't like, man, but there is something about seeing the energy in our man when he's talking about this stuff, man. You glow that through your facial features and your eyes, and to like see that, because that's something these listeners miss out on, is that I get to take part in, is watching you tell this stuff and see like that authentic Brian telling this story and knowing it and believing it. And I think they hear it through the voice too, man. But there's something cool about getting to look at you while you're doing it, because you're definitely the lights are on and the emotions are visible. And I know that when you're sharing with me, every bit of it is authentic. So thank you for that, man. It's cool. So, sound like you had a concluding thought there. You did.
Yep.
I always like to offer that, because in case somebody, a lot of people come in here and they get their own concluding thought sitting there. So we'll wrap this thing up. I'll hit those two things. Thank you for coming in today, man. I've been trying to get you here and get you in some of them round tables too, where we do some of that deal where a few of us are sitting around talking in a circle. We need you in that circle, man. You got a lot of power in your speech and in the experience and stuff you get to share. DTMWW.net. That's my little handyman woodwork for if you're in the Louisville metro area. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, a book by James Christopher Cohn, The 12 Steps for Everybody, or a deeper dive for those that are currently in the work and familiar with it. And the music wrapped around this podcast is by Darren Frank. Hey, if you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault. And thank you all for allowing me to participate in my recovery in this manner today. Peace out.
Greetings, folks. This is the Colonel. You may remember me from episode 126 about nicotine recovery. Well, I'm here with this week's public quit announcement for those wishing to add nicotine to your recovery roster. This PQA is brought to you by DTM Woodworking and the January 2018 quit group known as The Fury. I've experienced more than a few instances in my life where I had to make decisions that I was not fond of, or even making of my own accord. Well, that is today's topic as it relates to recovery. Today I'm going to ask, is this quit yours? Of the many failures I've experienced while trying to conquer my demons, nicotine being the most notable, one thing was constant amongst them all. Those quit attempts were always for someone else. I was making promises to others, deciding to make the attempts for others, be it for friends or family. Well, unless you internalize that commitment and believe in it, you are doomed to fail every time. Sure, you will follow the rules and make a good show of it for a few months, maybe even a year or two, but deep down inside, you are looking at this effort as a short-term inconvenience. You will quit just long enough to get the heat off, then you can once again relish in the warmth of your substance of choice. Folks, take it from me, whether you choose to believe me or not, this simple question is designed to help you through one of the hardest parts of any recovery, which is admitting to yourself that you have a problem and that you are powerless against it. Sound familiar? So I ask again, is this quit yours? Well, my friends, this has been your PQA for the week. Take it from Dan and I. It all gets better, and you only need to worry about staying quick today, one day at a time. Quit on and carry on, my friends. From a local bout.
Always tried to be just who they wanted. Always tried to do everything they said. Only did the things they would approve of. Lock away all your dreams inside your head. Year after year you try to be a good girl. They never failed to point out when you were bad. Stuck to the program like a robot. Became a trophy for mom and dad. But inside you want more. Everything you've been waiting for. Looking for that open door. So every day in your head, in your heart just keeps saying, let go and fly. Let go and fly. Spread your wings to the sky. Let go and fly. Ever since